Hello. Okay, so today I want to go over best practices for your logo. So we're going to talk about the different purposes for your logo, like whether you want to use it for digital or print. We're going to talk about the shapes, the transparency, the color, like if it goes on a dark background or a light background. We're going to talk about the resolution or the different sizes and file formats. And we're going to talk about just a few tips and tricks about logos. So basically, logos, a big overview. Okay, so let's dive in. The first thing I want to talk about is what is the actual purpose of your logo? Okay, so what do you plan on using it for? Maybe it's for everything. Maybe you want to do digital and you want to use it for print. Okay, so if you're going to do digital, you're probably going to use it in documents like invoices, on your website, on social media, Instagram, Facebook. Inside of your website, there's a thing called a favicon, which is the little logo that shows up at the top of your website when you load your website. It's like the little tiny one at the top. Anyways, so I'll talk about those as well. They're just like a smaller version. And then you may also want to use your logo for printing things. So this could be embroidery on, like, say, a hat or a jacket, engraving on like a cup. You might want to make a sign for the end of your driveway or your door, ads in newspapers, or labels if you sell farm food products. So those are all like very basic uses for a logo and pretty like common. So you want to make sure that you have something that you can use for each of those purposes, just in case. So if you're talking to your graphic designer, you want to make sure you cover your bases. You say, I want something that I can use for digital and for printing, for embroidery, engraving, signs, and for documents, websites, and favicon or social media. The next thing I want to talk about is the actual shape. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, here we are, and I am hoping that you can see my screen, and I'm going to put me on it. There we go. And I am going to open up Canva. We are going to take a look at a logo and the different shapes. So I want to go here. Okay, so this is a logo that I built. And I want to show you, this would be like more of a vertical style. So this could go on a website or basically anywhere you want it to. It just depends on what size you need it to fit into. And then you want to also have an option that's more horizontal, so that if you need to fit it in some place that, you know, is wider, that you could do that as well. It's also a really great idea to have something that's round for social media. Often they want round things. And then for favicon, you also want something that can shrink really small. So you're going to want something that has like only one letter, two letters, or, you know, that can be really small and you could still tell what it is. It could be very simplified, a very, very simplified version of your logo. Okay, so that's the different sizes to keep in mind and make sure that you have options for all of those. And then the transparency. Okay, so this is really important. In some cases, you're going to want to have a transparent background. So if I go and I take this logo, for example, I don't want this white background to export with it. I want just the people so that I can put them on any background color that I feel I want to. Or if you want to do some design stuff and have them overlap a picture or something like that, you have that option. So you want to go in here. If you use Canva, if you don't use Canva, I highly recommend it. Anyway, if you use Canva, this is how you would do it. You want to download it. So you press download. PNG is great. I'll talk about that later. But you want to click transparent background. Okay, so PNG, you can do a transparent background. JPEGs, you cannot. You want to choose, you don't want to print all the pages. You just want to save this page. And then you go done and download. Okay, so it's going to download that. I already have it downloaded because, yeah, I was ready. Okay, so here it is downloaded. And as you can see, it looks like it has a white background, but if I open up a document, okay, there we go. You can see that it has, if you put something behind it, it has no background. So it can go on top of anything you want it to. Okie dokie. So that's the transparency. And if you think you're going to want to put it on top of a different color background, or you might want to change the background, definitely get it in a version that has a transparent background so that you have that option. You also want to take into consideration that you might want, say you have this logo, but you might also want to put it on a light background instead of the dark background. Say you want an invoice and you want to print it and you don't want to print any color. Okay, well then you're going to need to have a logo that has a light background, and you're going to want to make sure that the printing stands out. So in this version, that would be the case. So you have a light background with dark logo, or a dark background with light logo, so that you can see it properly. And you always want to make sure that that it's very legible, obviously, because that's the whole point of a logo, right? Is that you can see it everywhere and it's very recognizable and clear. Because basically it's the first thing that a customer sees of your business. And so you want it to really make a good impact, and something that's fuzzy or not visible is not going to make the greatest first impression, right? I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Now let's talk about size and formats. This gets a little bit complicated sometimes, but I'm going to try to make it super easy on you. Okay, so I'm going to just assume that you don't know very much about file formats, and we're going to go really simple. I want to give you an example that's going to make this pretty easy to understand, I think, anyways. I'm going to use a bale as an example. So let's say, okay, you have a straw field, you bale up the straw, you have a round bale, and it's sitting in your field. Okay, so the size of that bale is going to be measured in resolution, pixel size, and file size. Hear me out here. So the resolution is like, resolution would be dots per inch. So you could also think of this as like straw per inch. So it's how dense that bale is. Is it a really dense bale, or is it a really loosely baled bale? That's the resolution, or the DPI, dots per inch. So that's a nice way of thinking about that one. And then the actual file size is how much space that actually takes up. So say in a bale, it would be like how many feet do I need to store this bale? And in a logo, it would be like, how much space on my computer do I actually need to store this logo? And then pixel size is actually the measurement of the distance. So it would be like, how many inches is it across and how many inches is it tall, right? So you have to, when you're thinking about a bale, you want to think, oh, is it a big bale, or is it a small bale? And then how densely is it baled, and how much space on my field do I need? So in a logo, you want to look at the resolution, so how densely it's stored, basically. So that's going to be how clear it is. You can enlarge it larger if it has a high resolution, and it'll still be clear. Okay, so let's look at some file sizes. I will open up a file here. Just give me 1 second. We've got, let's say 78 kilobytes to 117 kilobytes. These are all quite small file sizes. So there's 1,000 kilobytes in a megabyte. A megabyte would be about the size of your average picture online. Okay, so you can see the size is here. This is the file, the size it takes up in your computer, how much storage space you need. And then when you want to share a logo, or you export it, so say you want to export it as a JPEG. Okay, well, this is the pixel size. So basically the width and the height in you could say it in inches or pixels. You know, each pixel is a certain size, and that's the height and the width. Okie dokie. Quality. This is where your DPI comes in. So the higher the DPI, the better. I think this one is actually in percentage, but a lot of programs will give it to you in DPI, dots per inch. And I would say a nice high resolution or DPI would be 300 and a low one would be 72. In this case, I always just put mine to 100 because they're still small sizes and I always want them to be crystal clear. So what do I recommend for these? I am going to open up another document. Now, keep in mind that this is very, very approximate, and this could vary a lot. But basically, if you're doing digital, you're going to want to export it in an SVG. That's great for website logos because it's a very small file size, it loads super fast, and it has great quality on a website. You could also use a PNG. I've used many of those. They are also fairly small, not quite as small in file size. And they're also great for websites. A JPEG I would use probably only for pictures because you can't do the transparent background with a JPEG. It's meant more for pixelated images. So ones that have regular photos, basically. And you want to make sure that those are going to be over that. They say over 72 DPI, but I would even venture to say higher than that, just so that you make sure that on every screen, your pictures are looking good and not being fuzzy. And so you want your pictures to be around that 1 megabyte mark. If they're smaller than that, you might start getting into problems when people open it up on bigger screens. If you're going for speed of loading, then you may not be as concerned about that. But I would say that 1 megabyte mark is pretty safe territory for, in my opinion. And then if you want to do printing, I would do JPEG for printing pictures, or PDF is basically safe for everything. So that's for documents, pictures, logos, and ads. And if you wanted to get into more sophisticated stuff, there are other options as well. But for the majority of printers, embroiderers, etc., a PDF is going to be a pretty good bet. And these file sizes can be quite a bit larger. Sometimes it can be tough to email them, and you might have to use like a Google Drive or something like that to send them. But you want to make sure that they're over 300 DPI if you're printing, and like very, very large pictures, depending on what you're printing, but especially if it's like a big, like a poster or something like that, you're going to want to make sure it's big enough. So when it comes to tips and tricks with your logo, I would say one of my biggest tips is to make sure that when your logo is uploaded into different, onto social media, onto your website, wherever you want to use it, that it's not cut off. You could see the whole entire logo, whichever format you use. Say it's a circular one, make sure that there's nothing sticking off the edges, unless that's the actual design concept. But if anything's sticking off the edges, or if it's too small and not legible, then use a different style of your logo, or just simplify your logo so that you can see the whole thing and that it's very clear no matter what size. Like say for a favicon, remember that's the top part in your little on your website browser. Those are those little tiny logos at the top of your website browser, the favicons. If that's what if you want to put one of those in, make sure it's like 1 or 2 letters or 1 image, 1 very, very clear image. Use the right size for what you're wanting it to do. Say it's a Facebook banner, then you're going to want it to be more horizontal, and make sure you look at it on all your devices. So go visit your website on your desktop computer, visit it on your tablet, visit it on your phone, and make sure that your logo is appearing well in all the different. Okay, that's all I got on logos. If you have questions, don't hesitate to message me, and I would love to hear from you and have fun using your logo all over.